Why do so many older adults wake up at 300 a.m.? It's a quiet hour. The world is still, and yet there you are, lying awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling. It's 3 a.m., and sleep has slipped away again. You're not in pain. You're not worried, at least not in any obvious way. But your body, your mind, something stirred you from rest. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. In fact, this early morning awakening is one of the most common sleep disruptions people experience after the age of 60. And it's not random. It's not a bad habit. And it's certainly not a personal failure. The truth is, your body is changing. Your rhythms are shifting. And those 3:00 a.m. wake-ups, they may be telling you something important. In this video, we're going to gently explore 5 powerful reasons why so many older adults wake up during this quiet stretch of the night and what it actually means. We'll look beyond the surface to reveal the biological, emotional, and lifestyle changes that often go unnoticed, but deeply affect how and when you sleep. Whether it's your body's natural melatonin production slowing down, changes in your health, or even quiet emotional restlessness bubbling up when everything else is still. We're going to walk through it all together with honesty, empathy, and respect. Because once you understand why this happens, you can stop blaming yourself and start finding ways to rest more peacefully, more naturally, and with more compassion for the season of life you're in. So if you've ever whispered to yourself at 3:00 a.m., "Why now? Stay with me," the answers might surprise you and comfort you too. One of the most common and most overlooked reasons older adults find themselves wide awake at 3:00 a.m. is something that happens quietly behind the scenes every single night: a natural decline in melatonin production. Melatonin is often called the sleep hormone, but it's so much more than that. It's the internal lighthouse that guides your body through the darkness of night, telling your brain, it's time to rest now, and keeping you anchored in deep restorative sleep. When you were younger, your body likely produced melatonin in strong, predictable waves, enough to gently carry you into sleep and hold you there until morning. But as you age, those waves start to soften. Your body doesn't stop producing melatonin altogether, but the supply becomes thinner, more fragile. It's like trying to fall asleep by candlelight instead of under the glow of a steady lamp. There's still light, but not quite enough to keep the shadows away. This is why so many older adults find themselves waking in the early morning hours. Not because of a nightmare or a noise, but because their brain is slowly drifting back toward alertness. At 3:00 a.m., melatonin levels may have already dipped too low to keep you comfortably asleep. Your body is still, your surroundings are quiet, but your mind stirs, and suddenly, you're awake. This isn't a personal flaw, it's not insomnia. It's a rhythm, one that's shifted with age. To make matters more complicated, our modern environments don't make it easy for melatonin to do its job. Even small sources of light from a blinking alarm clock, a hallway lamp, or the glow of a phone screen can suppress melatonin production even further. And as we age, our sensitivity to these disruptions only increases. Consider someone like Harold, age 72. For decades he slept soundly through the night, but recently he's been waking up around 3:15 a.m. and lying there alert, wondering why. It wasn't until he learned about melatonin that everything clicked. He realized this change wasn't something broken, it was something natural. So he made a few adjustments, dimming his lights earlier in the evening, avoiding screens before bed, and taking a slow walk outside at dusk to help reset his internal clock. Now, even when Harold wakes at 3:00 a.m., he doesn't panic. He doesn't blame his body. He knows what's happening, and he knows how to work with it, not against it. That's the power of awareness. When you understand that your sleep patterns are changing not because something is wrong, but because your biology is evolving, you can respond with wisdom, not frustration. You can create conditions that honor your body's new rhythm. You can let go of the fight and finally begin to rest again. After learning about the quiet decline in melatonin, many older adults begin to notice something else, a change in the very rhythm of sleep itself. You may find yourself not only waking up earlier but also feeling sleepy well before the evening news is over. This isn't just about hormones. It's about a deeper transformation in how your internal clock, your circadian rhythm, keeps time. As we age, this clock begins to tick ahead, gradually pushing our natural sleep window forward. It's a phenomenon known as advanced sleep phase syndrome, and it's one of the most common yet misunderstood causes of early morning awakenings. What this means is simple but powerful. Your body now wants to sleep earlier and wake earlier. You may drift off at 8:30 or 9:00 p.m. without even realizing it, and then find yourself wide awake at 3:00 a.m. staring into the darkness, wondering what went wrong. But here's the truth. Nothing went wrong. Your body is simply on a new schedule. One, it's been shifting towards slowly, year by year. This adjustment is biological, not behavioral. Even if you try to stay up later, your body may begin producing melatonin earlier in the evening than it used to, nudging you towards sleep before your day feels complete. And when you do fall asleep early, it's no surprise. You wake before sunrise because to your body, morning has already arrived. Take Charles, for example. At 68, he's retired. His day's quieter now. Dinner is usually around 5:30, followed by a little TV or reading. Without a structured schedule, he often finds himself in bed before 9:00. By 3:00 a.m., his body has had 6 solid hours of sleep, sometimes even more. He wakes up alert but confused, unsure if he should force himself back to bed or simply begin the day. Once Charles understood that this was a natural phase shift, not insomnia, not anxiety, he began to work with it instead of resisting it. He made a few small changes: a post-dinner stroll, a phone call with his daughter in the late evening, reading with a warm lamp instead of dozing off in his recliner. These gentle adjustments helped push his bedtime later, allowing his wake-up time to follow suit. You see, our internal clocks are deeply tied to cues, light activity, conversation movement, and as those cues grow quieter in retirement, the clock drifts forward unchecked. But the beautiful part is, you can gently guide it back. With consistency, light exposure, and a touch of structure, you can create a rhythm that better supports your lifestyle. So if you've noticed yourself waking in the early hours of the morning, take heart. It's not a failure. It's not a flaw. It's simply your body telling time in a new way. And once you learn to read that time, not with frustration, but with understanding, you can begin to craft evenings and mornings that feel whole again. As we explored in the last section, the aging body has a new rhythm, one that often nudges us toward earlier bedtimes and earlier mornings. But even if you manage to gently realign that clock, another challenge may rise from within, the quiet, persistent voice of physical discomfort. For many older adults, the 3:00 a.m. wake-up call isn't just about a shifted sleep cycle. It's about the body itself, making its needs known, not with dramatic alarms, but through whispers, a stiff knee, a sore back, a sudden urge to use the bathroom. These aren't random interruptions. They're deeply personal signals, reminders that the body, like the mind, is carrying the weight of a lifelong lived. Take arthritis, for example. Lying still for hours in one position can cause joints to stiffen or ache, especially in the early morning hours when the body's natural inflammation levels tend to spike. You may fall asleep feeling fine, but wake up hours later with a dull, nagging pain that you can't quite stretch away. The same is true for chronic back pain, restless leg syndrome, or even mild neuropathy conditions that don't always keep you from falling asleep, but seem determined to wake you once rest has settled in. And then there's the bladder. As we age, the muscles that support urinary control weaken. The bladder becomes less elastic. Even a modest intake of fluid during the day can lead to an urgent awakening in the middle of the night. Add in common medications, many of which increase urination, affect hydration, or subtly alter blood pressure, and the body finds itself more vulnerable to interruption just when it needs rest the most. Take Eleanor, 76, who once thought of her 3:30 a.m. wake-ups were emotional. But when she started paying closer attention, she noticed her knee always ached first, or her mouth felt dry, or her back twinged just enough to keep her from drifting back into sleep. With her doctor's help, she adjusted her medication timing, added a warm compress routine before bed, and elevated her legs slightly while sleeping. These small changes allowed her to reclaim an hour or two of uninterrupted rest each night. She didn't fight her body. She listened to it. What's important to understand is this. These wake-ups are not betrayals by your body. They are, in fact, signs that your body is still communicating with you, still working, still trying to heal and adjust. And that means there's still time to respond with gentleness, with care, with awareness. If you've been waking up around 3 a.m. and can't quite place why, take a moment to scan your body. Notice the subtle discomforts, the tightness, the dryness, the tension. These are invitations, not interruptions. Invitations to take better care of the vessel that's carried you this far when paired with an understanding of your body's new internal clock. This awareness becomes a tool not just for sleep, but for wholeness, and that journey continues in the next section. In the last section, we uncovered how your body's quiet signals. Discomfort thirst, a restless joint, can pull you from sleep around 300 a.m. But sometimes it's not the pain or the bladder calling you awake. Sometimes it's the rhythm of your life itself, the quiet habits you've built day by day that gently steer your body into early morning wakefulness without your even realizing it. It often begins with small, well-meaning choices. You eat dinner earlier to support digestion. You dim the lights and settle into your recliner for a bit of evening TV. Perhaps you drift off during the news only to wake again and shuffle off to bed. You stop taking long afternoon walks. You avoid caffeine after lunch. Your days become a little softer, a little quieter, a little slower. These habits aren't bad. In fact, many of them are healthy. But together, they start to shift your internal signals. Those invisible cues that tell your brain when to rest and when to rise. Without a strong need to stay up late or stay active into the evening, your body begins to wind down earlier. Your circadian rhythm, once guided by the buzz of career parenting or social life, begins to reprogram itself to a quieter existence. And so you fall asleep earlier, often without even realizing it. But here's the catch. If you go to bed at 8:30 or 9 p.m., your body may naturally wake after 6 or 7 hours, which just so happens to be 300 a.m. This is what happened to Walter, a recently retired school teacher in his early 70s. After years of waking at dawn, his body no longer needed an alarm. But now, without the structure of work, his days grew quieter. Dinner was at 5 p.m., followed by a bit of reading or a favorite TV show. Most nights Walter was asleep by 8:45, but then wide awake by 3, confused, frustrated, and unsure why. It wasn't insomnia, it was momentum. The momentum of his own peaceful, well-intentioned routine. Once he recognized the pattern, Walter didn't need to overhaul his life. He simply stretched a few elements of his evening. He added a brisk walk at 6 p.m., held off on dinner until 6:30, and started journaling before bed under a warm light. These small adjustments helped delay his internal clock just enough to carry him through to morning. It's not always about doing more. Sometimes it's about being more aware of how your habits whisper to your body day after day. Sleep is not just the absence of noise or light. It's the echo of how you've lived that day. So if you're waking up in the still hours, take a look at the day that came before. What signals did you give your body? And more importantly, what new signals could you try? Because rest doesn't begin at bedtime. It begins long before. By now we've explored how habits, those quiet, repetitive rhythms of daily life, can nudge your sleep cycle forward without your awareness. But what if you've adjusted your schedule, dimmed the lights, walked after dinner, and you still wake up at 3 a.m.? In those still breathless moments, it may not be your body at all that wakes you. It may be your soul. There comes a point in life, especially after retirement, after loss, after transitions, where the world slows just enough for your inner voice to catch up. The distractions that once shielded you, jobs, parenting, packed calendars begin to fade, and in their place comes stillness. Silence, space. For many older adults, it's in that silence that old memories resurface. Unspoken grief stretches its legs. Regrets whisper through the dark. Questions long buried rise gently to the surface, and they arrive like clockwork at 3 a.m. This is not insomnia. This is not failure. This is remembering. Take Gloria, for example, an 80-year-old widow who spent decades raising her children and caring for others. By day, her house was filled with routines, watering her plants, folding the laundry, watching game shows, but nightfall was different. When the distractions faded and the house quieted, her thoughts wandered. She didn't feel anxious, just unsettled. She woke up at 3 a.m., not in fear, but in a kind of quiet ache. Sometimes it was memories of her late husband. Sometimes it was a fleeting question. Did I do enough? Did I say goodbye the right way? It wasn't until Gloria began to honor those wake-ups not as problems, but as invitations that her rest deepened. She started leaving a soft lamp and notebook on her nightstand. When she woke, she wrote whatever came. Sometimes it was just a sentence. I miss him. Other nights it was a prayer, a memory, a hope. And slowly, those 3 a.m. moments stopped feeling like interruptions and started feeling like communion with her past, her grief, and her wisdom. You see, as we grow older, our emotional landscapes shift. The mind, no longer crowded with deadlines, starts housekeeping of its own. It opens closets long shut. It dusts off moments we thought we'd forgotten. And while this might feel inconvenient, especially when you just want a full night's sleep, it's actually a sign that you are still growing, still healing, still human. So if you find yourself awake in the stillness, don't panic. Don't rush to distract yourself. Instead, listen. Ask gently. What is stirring? What is unfinished? What does my soul need me to notice? Sometimes the path to better sleep isn't in melatonin or routines, but in softening your heart toward the part of you that's still speaking. Because 3 a.m. isn't always about waking up. Sometimes it's about finally hearing what you've carried for years. Waking up at 3 a.m. can feel like a curse, like something is broken, like something is wrong. But what if it's not? What if it's your body, your spirit, your story, gently asking for your attention? We've walked through 5 deeply human reasons why these early hours visit so many of us with such persistence, from changes in hormones and circadian rhythms to the quiet knock of emotional restlessness. Each reason reveals something sacred. Your body is still speaking, still adapting, still holding wisdom worth listening to. You're not alone in this. Many others are wakening at that same hour, staring at their ceilings, wondering the same things. And now you know it's not just you, it's biology. Yes, but it's also memory healing and transformation. The next time you wake in the stillness, don't rush to push it away. Instead, meet yourself with compassion. Adjust your routines. Honor your body. Tend to your heart. Whether it's journaling, stretching, or simply breathing into the moment, your rest may come not from resistance, but from understanding. Because this isn't just about sleep. It's about evolving with grace, about recognizing that even in the quietest hours, you are not losing control. You're uncovering layers of yourself that are still alive, still unfolding, still worthy. If this video brought clarity, comfort, or even just a breath of relief, we invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find more honest, uplifting, and insightful conversations about aging, health, purpose, and peace. Your journey matters, and we're honored to walk it with you. Click subscribe, turn on the bell, and join a growing community of people learning to rest and live with deeper wisdom.